it's a sense of entitlement that they have. They feel that they have shown their competence in management, that they have had many people die within their ranks defending the country from Iraq and other Western threats, as they usually put it, and also from internal threats. And the reason that we do have an Islamic Republic standing up right now, it's solely because of their existence and of what they did.
Now, when the students protest, do they have some level of understanding that they have allies within the elite that will protect them from the Revolutionary Guard? Do they have any allies within the Revolutionary Guard? Because, you know, in theory here, if they had a unified Revolutionary Guard and ruling elite, they could crack down on them.
I think it's very important to point out the dynamics of these PowerPoints that we're talking about. Even within the clerical regime, obviously there are different PowerPoints that are at play here. It's the same thing with the IRGC, even at the higher level. I mean, granted, those who are in control right now are probably in the same alignment with the supreme leader and some very hardline, hardcore clerics and some other members, let's say, within the parliament and such. But even within at that level, and particularly file and rank of IRGC, and also the regular military, you have people who are not happy with this particular situation, who are not happy with the fact that those few high-level members of IRGC have such influence and such control. I think the students know that. I think originally, right after the election, when millions, literally millions of people poured out for the first time in history, 30-year history of the regime, they did feel that they had allies within the regime. Again, we mentioned some of these names, former President Khatami, Hashemi Rafsanjani, and some other high-level clerics, but also some members within the security apparatus in IRGC. I think that opening allowed them to feel comfortable enough to come out. But then after the second or third day, when they actually poured out, particularly with the so-called Basij militia, these are the volunteer militia of about 1 million in number. They're more of a thuggish, or the sort of...
These are the ones we see riding around with clubs
with
on
batons
motorcycles.
and such. Once they came out, then again, a lot of them just decided that maybe it's not worth going out, and now we see that the students carrying.
In the leadership of the Revolutionary Guard, given that the Revolutionary Guard owns so much, but are they accumulating personal wealth, or is it in the ownership of the Revolutionary Guard itself?
A combination of it. I mean, they feel that their personal gain is very much dependent on the well-being of the entity itself, and not just the whole entity, but those few who are like-minded in particular. A good example that comes to mind was that during the presidency of Khatami, when they were opening this brand new international airport called Ayatollah Khomeini International Airport, far from Tehran, about an hour from Tehran, and there was such a big deal about it, and they had given the shops, the running of the shops within the airport to this Turkish company. That did not sit well with IRGC members. They wanted more dough, if you will, out of this deal. And the night before it was supposed to open, they poured in the IRGC members, they shut everything down, and the next thing you know, they were accusing the Turkish company that was running the concession stands at the airport with dealing with Israel, which of course in Islamic Iran, it's an absolute no-no, and the whole thing was shut down. And it just opened up a year after that with IRGC being in control of the concession stands at the airport. So they feel that, you know, if the entity as a whole is well endowed, then obviously they can A, keep control on just about everything, and also enrich themselves. And it's also important to point out when we talk about sanctions against, because they're talking about targeted sanctions against IRGC, and you hear a great deal of debate that still is going to hurt Iranian people, because IRGC is such a huge entity that it employs such a large number of Iranians that regardless if you're targeting them, it's still going to impact Iranians as a whole. And as a last note, I do want to mention about this particular thing. We do have to remember that their claim is to some extent true. I mean, the fact that these people actually went out there in defense of Iran. And it's a shame that the name of Basij, as well as the IRGC, has been sinking to such a low, and they're reacting in such a way, because the original Basij and original IRGC were the people who not only defended Iran, but were heavily involved as volunteers in some cases in rebuilding the country after a devastating 8-year war that they had with Iraq. But now they've become this kind of agent of oppression, and that's regrettable.
So in the next segment of our interview, let's talk just a little bit more about the structure of the Iranian elite, which essentially what in the elite we're seeing segments of multi-billionaires in one way or the other. There's an enormous amount of wealth at stake. And then the question is, does this elite really want a nuclear weapon, or do they just want to be on center stage? So please join us for the next segment of our interview with Babak Yektabar.